Uh, so look, I've been with the business for about 17 years, the last 10 years of which I've been supporting North Shoring projects specifically. It's been a great thing to be involved in. I think it's fair to say over those 10 years, the volume and frequency of North Shoring projects has increased exponentially. It's a growing trend that we've seen. And I think if we jump back 5 or 6 years, one of the more common things for businesses to be doing, if we're sticking with legal businesses, which we obviously talked about a lot, it was either pools of paralegals or it was a back office function that was being moved. And whilst that's still very prevalent, what we've certainly seen is a much greater trend for all sectors. So not just professional services, but every sector. There's North Shoring activity underway, and much more significant breadth of the job functions and the job levels where we've seen North Shoring activity. James, I know we had the briefest of conversations earlier on, but I think maybe your business has seen kind of evidence within your data that supports that trend.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. And I think, Richard gave me a brief and he said, okay, please can you assemble some data which shows what has been happening specifically within professional services when it comes to hiring by, in terms of the law firms, the accounting firms, and how their hiring has actually changed. And picking up on what Graham said, I mean, we've been tracking these markets since 2006. And so in 2006, yes, obviously, what you would see is that you started to see a shift where in the first instance, it started to be about the low cost areas, your paralegals, your more office secretarial roles, those areas, business administration functions, and those were shifted. And then what's really interesting is that it started to shift right the way through the piece. And so just to give you some data on this, just looking at what we did, we pulled together the data on the last 3 years. So even 2017 to 2019, because what we saw was a real watermark moment post-referendum, where the firms actually just made the jump and said, actually, we're just going to start equalizing hiring. And what I mean by that is they were turning around and saying, well, actually, regardless of whether there are more jobs or less jobs, the proportion of jobs that we're going to be moving to these locations is going to increase. So we're going to push more legal roles here, more finance roles here, right the way through, regardless of whether it's qualified lawyers, accountants, whether it's management roles or administration roles. And so, I mean, to give you an idea, if you're looking at the Northwest specifically, the vacancies for qualified accountants has increased from, say, 11.8% in 2018 through to 13.3%. If you're looking at the legal, in terms of the legal side, it's actually increased from, say, 11% in 2017 through to 12% now. So what we're seeing is the number of these qualified roles in London is shrinking proportionately, whilst it's increasing in the Northwest. Now, if the market expands, obviously the number of jobs in London is growing, but then the number of jobs growing in the Northwest is growing faster. And there's some actually, and Graham, you would know this as well. I think just to let you finish it off, what you've seen with that is you have seen the salary differential narrow. And I'll push back to you now and let you talk about that one.
Yeah, for sure. And what I wanted to do was maybe to try and sign off was just to try and give 3 relatively practical bits of advice. So we've been involved in projects where it's been a handful of people up to where it's been 1,000. And I think probably the 3 things that I would try and challenge people who are either already undertaking it, trying to go further, or considering it. The first one of those, James will be pleased that I'm saying this, but it's around doing your homework and doing your research. And there's some amazing data out there. There's also a great community in the North where people have shown today, people are happy to talk, people are happy to share experiences, people are happy to meet and have coffee. I think if you combine those meetings with some real strong data, it really is about doing your homework. The plans that we've been involved in, it's normally the 6th, 7th or 8th iteration of a company's plan that ends up being the one that they go live on. So I think really do your homework. The 3 things you want to be thinking of when you're doing your homework really when it comes to talent is availability, accessibility and affordability. And if you get that right, more often than not, you can take the right plan forward. So the second piece is really what's your story. I think one of the things that some of the firms that have struggled in that move, struggled in terms of probably it taking longer than they wanted to get it right. is they've not thought long and hard about what that story is. And I think some of the pulls for why people move jobs in different parts of the country do differ. And I think what you can't do is take that for granted. You've got to really connect with that local labour market. And I think it's typically more competitive than firms realise before they step into it. And the third one is just around agility. And I think no matter how great your data is, no matter how strong your plan is, you've got to be prepared to adjust, particularly for some of the more specialist and niche roles. A really good example of an investment banking firm where we did some work for them last year, and they were looking for something very specific in the north of England. And in the end, they ended up hiring a different combination of 5 people, but also moved more work to that team than they envisaged, but had to make that adjustment based on who they were meeting in the marketplace, albeit they got a great result in the end.